Hello and welcome to another Infinity N5 mission briefing. Today I'll be going through the missions for South Perth Brawl 2026. South Perth Brawl 2026 will be held on the Saturday and Sunday in November on the 21st and 22nd of this year. It will be held at one of our gaming clubs called Outpost 6030. They are a tabletop gaming club that hosts many different tabletop games, Infinity being one of them. Outpost is hosting this tournament and they are located at the South Perth Community Centre. In the past, South Perth Brawl was Western Australia's two-day event, but COVID-19 changed that. Now that things have settled down, South Perth Brawl is starting to become a two-day event again, which is good news for Infinity players. The missions currently planned are Crossing Lines, Hardlock, Uplink Centre, Area of Interest and Provisioning. Because the tournament is after the new Season 18 release, some of the missions may change. Any changes in the mission lineup will be notified before the tournament. The time limit for each game is 2 hours and 15 minutes. Tickets for the tournament are $80 Australian, and the payment options are included in the Players Pack. Outpost 6030 is located inside South Perth Community Centre. The address is corner of South Terrace and Sandgate Street, South Perth, Western Australia 6151. Payment information can be found in the Players Pack, which is available on the Western Australia Infinity Facebook page. Find the Events tab, click that and you will see South Perth Brawl 2026 and all the relevant information to find the Players Pack and registration. The tournament will be an official ITS event and players are to subscribe on Corvus Belli. The format for the 2 days are as follows. Day 1, the Saturday, 0700 to 8:30 is arrival and setup of the tables. 0830 to 0845 will be the tournament admin, so just final confirmation and registration of players. 8:45 to 9 will be the painting competition, Armies on Parade. That is where across both lists all your miniatures that are painted can be grouped together and compared and graded for painting quality. First mission, Crossing Lines, is at 0900 and will go to 11:30. Lunch is for an hour, followed by Hardlock from 12:30 to 14:15, and then 14:30 to 16:45 will be Uplink Centre. Day 2, which is the Sunday, arrival will be at 0900, and then first mission Area of Interest from 0930 to 12. Again, lunch for an hour, and then final game Provisioning at 1300 to 15:15. 15:30 to 1600 will be results and prizes, and 1600 to 1700 will be pack up and leave for those that brought tables along with them. So for lunch, Outpost will provide a sausage sizzle for both days, or alternatively, players can take a short walk down the road to the Como Hotel and purchase food and beverages from there. A social event is being planned for players on Saturday evening, details to be advised. The remaining information, such as proxying and line of fire markers and all that stuff, will be found in the Players Pack. So now let's look at the mission lineup as it currently is. First mission is Crossing Lines. This is a very aggressive mission. A player can push hard and kill as many of their opponent's troopers and put them into retreat, whilst dominating both dead zones before round 3. A couple of ways to play the mission. One is placing midfield troopers as obstacles in the middle deployment zone, such as mines and warbands, making use of the midfield as a fixed area for preventing your opponent from moving past the midfield into your dead zone. Or alternatively, treat the table as two mini tables, one where you have a larger force against a smaller force, and the other where you have a smaller force against your opponent's larger force. This will determine how you deploy your troopers if you decide to play the game this way. I dare say most players will adopt the playstyle treating the midfield to deploy many order-wasting troopers and prevent your opponent from walking all the way from their main deployment zone towards your dead zone in your half of the table. Important to know, both dead zones prevent any troopers with superior deployment from being deployed inside, except for troopers with the impersonation skill. However, airborne deployment troopers have certain limitations for this mission, and I'll explain. Parachutists can only land along the table edge, leaving them to deploy within your deployment zones if you have So for player B down here, they can deploy anywhere along the back edge and sides, and also along the sides along this forward deployment zone here. And for player A, likewise, anywhere along that edge and anywhere along the table edges in this middle deployment zone. And if you have parachutist deployment zone, well then both areas of the board open up. So you could land along here, along the edges in the midfield here, or also along the back up here. However, combat jump troopers are more valuable for this mission since they can land anywhere on the table outside of the dead zone. So if you're thinking about including such troopers, the combat jump option may be preferable. So for combat jump, you'll be deploying in this rectangle, the center rectangle, or the opponent's deployment zone. The second mission is Hardlock. This mission favors the second player because all you have to do is prevent your opponent or restrict them from controlling the beacon and make a push for the consoles in the midfield. So player A might want to push hard for the console, then set up to defend them for the remainder of the game, which will be a lot of hard work. And then player B will want to fight for the consoles and try to activate them during the third round. When consoles are activated, they belong to the activating player, so they switch between players and making them fight over the consoles. So if player A was to activate this console on the right, then player B follows up and activates it. It now belongs to player B and no longer player A. Important to remember, a player cannot control an enemy beacon until they have activated one console. Also, a player does not need to bring the beacon into their deployment zone, so maybe they can find a tall building to enter top of and defend themselves each round. With keeping one console activated and preventing the opponent from controlling theirs, and preventing the opponent from controlling your beacon, a possible score of 5 OP is achievable with the opponent score of 4 if they activate the two remaining consoles and no classified objectives. If both players complete classified objectives, a possible score of 6 OP to 5 OP, but this is a harder strategy for player A to achieve. It would be easier to fight over the consoles and prevent one's beacon from being controlled. The third mission is Uplink Center, basically Hardlock without the beacon. Both players fight over the objectives, scoring points for activating and controlling them. Controlling an antenna means a player has at least one allied trooper in contact with the antenna and no opponent troopers in contact. A player can still control an antenna even if it has been activated by the opponent. Activating and controlling are two separate mechanisms for scoring objective points. And there is a push for controlling the tech coffin at the end of the game, and trying to keep one's lieutenant alive. A simple shootout type mission with end of game scoring. I think perhaps having midfield obstacles to slow your opponent may be important for this mission with durable specialists. And just to further clarify on the activating and controlling, your opponent can have an activated antenna but with no one in silhouette contact with it, and then you push up and gain silhouette contact with it, then you control that antenna. So it's just useful to remind oneself that they're both separate mechanisms. Fourth mission is Area of Interest. Both radial missions are on the second day. Area of Interest focuses on dominating circular zones, with both players fighting to dominate the special zone every round. Having an activated antenna each round is the next main objective. For this mission, the player who kept initiative places a normal area of interest and a special area of interest. The second player deploys only one normal area of interest. The first player has the advantage of placing the special zone in a defendable position near his deployment zone, forcing the second player to move across the midfield to try and contest it. However, the second player can focus on activating and defending the antenna because that is closer to the deployment zone. The only problem is, if the opponent has a hacker within an area of interest, that hacker can force a face-to-face whip roll when a player tries to activate the antenna. So of note, having a hacker inside any area of interest does not allow the use of hacking programs when activating the antenna. It is purely to make it harder for a player to activate the antenna. For example, player A has a killer hacking device inside his area of interest, and player B has a hacker attempting to activate the central antenna. Player A cannot use Trinity against player B's hacker. Player A can only declare a whip roll to stop player B from activating the antenna. Alternatively, if player A did activate the antenna in their turn, it belongs to him. When player B tries to activate the antenna in his turn, player A can keep the antenna under his ownership, because if he wins the face-to-face roll, it denies player B the opportunity to activate it, keeping player A in possession of the antenna. And this allows him to score more for the end of that round. Now, I did play a practice rep of this, and a couple of things I learned is that while going first gives you the advantage of having that deploying that special zone, you still have to be mindful of the terrain on the table. I unfortunately was left with the worst deployment zone, and I deployed the specialist zone just outside my deployment zone, but unfortunately there was not a lot of cover to protect it, and so I could not put any troopers inside of it because they'd be exposed to my opponent's multiple arrows that he had up. So sometimes, depending on the table, it's probably best to put the special zone in a more defended area, still near your deployment zone, but at least have larger terrain around it to block multiple lanes of fire. And I think if I was to have second turn, and in a couple of previous games, the opponent did the same thing, defended the special zone, and I just could not reach it because it was more open on my end. So I think making a push for the antenna in the middle is probably a better option, because at the end of the day, we can both score 3 points. If they focus on the special area of interest and I focus on the communication antenna, we can score 3 points, and then the rest is made up for trying to either take the last zone or trying to remove him from his zone, and then doing the classified. Final mission is provisioning. Both players will place a circular template representing a safe zone to drop extracted supply boxes. The center tech coffin has 2 supply boxes, the remaining only have 1. I have not played this mission before, so I cannot provide any insights or understanding them. I have heard that some players will place their safe zone far away as possible, using infiltrating specialists to make a grab for the supply boxes, and then move into the safe zone to drop them, then set up to defend the safe zone. Another tactic is to place the safe zone at the zenith of one's deployment zone, have troopers provide overwatch of that safe zone, and run supply boxes into it. Either way, it will involve using a lot of orders, and it looks like a very order-intensive mission. Something to note, only specialist troopers can pick up supply boxes inside your opponent's safe zone. And I've heard it can be done, but I am unsure if doing so would be a worthwhile tactic. That is a lot of orders to move into my opponent's half of the table, successfully pick up a supply box, and then run it back to mine. And the supply boxes to score OP have to be dropped into the safe zone. And putting it in a safe zone is considered controlling it. You cannot just have it on the trooper and keep moving around. You have to actually put it down in the safe zone to score. So here's my mission analysis for the tournament. I'm sure there are other ways to break down the missions, but this is just mine. I generally look at deployment zone depth because it will decide what weapon ranges I need to consider and how much distance I need to cover to move troopers into the midfield. Other factors are there things such as classifieds, do I need to think about which specialists I might need to include, and I focus on the general method of scoring objective points. My considerations for each mission are on the left of the screen. On the right of the screen are my list requirements that I've determined. The foundation of my lists are built for the mission. With practice games, I fine-tune my list to counter troopers I may expect from my opponents. There are 3 objective-based missions, all with objectives located in the midfield, and those will be fought over during the game. They are Hardlock, Uplink Center, and Provisioning. The other two missions require me to dominate zones and to hold them to score objective points. So list 1 will focus on the midfield objective missions, having troopers that can move over a lot of table area or start closer to the objectives, with hopefully some type of vision mod, and they'll be used to build my list. List 2 will focus on dominating zone missions, having troopers that have skills to improve their ballistic skill or close combat attributes, and armor BTS durability will be considered for list 2. And as a general guide for both lists, for ARO duty, I am thinking long range weapons will be better, such as missile launchers and sniper rifles. So this is the first of my lists after the analysis of the missions. So this is my foundation for both my lists, and refinements will be made after practicing some games. So list 1 is on the left, will be for the objective focused missions, and list 2 on the right will be for the dominating zones. So list 1 on the left, I have a duo of Santiago Knights, one with a Spitfire and EM grenades, and one with a multi-rifle and D charges and Tinbot for -3 with a killer hacking device. It is very good, 64 points for a useful utility duo. The killer hacker obviously makes it a hacker and therefore a specialist, but the Knight of Santiago's in their profiles are all specialist operatives. So even the Santiago Lieutenant is a specialist. This will be supported by a core, a Crozier core with a Knight Commander chain of command, a Crozier with multispectral visor level 2 and a HMG, Brother Konstantinos for the disco baller, a normal Crozier with Blitzen, and a sniper with EM1 and mine layer. Followed up with a Knight of Santiago combat jump. Group 2 will be a Knight of Montesa 4 deployment +8, which is be a paramedic. 2 Trinitarians, mine layer, one with a deployable repeater on the shock mine, and a Peacemaker with the mine layer Oxbot to round out other options to claim and defend the midfield. So that's the core of that mission. I've already refined it after one game, and I just found I needed more orders to be more efficient. 12 orders just was not enough, so I've changed a few things already, but it's still the main focus of the core of the list, or the foundation, is the fire teams. And the Peacemaker is just a great piece in the middle just to hold, and I really had a lot of luck with the Knight of Montesa for deploying paramedic. List 2 consists of a core with the Knight Commander +1 Lieutenant order, Crozier HMG with MSV2, another Crozier Blitzen, a Curator this time, which is the Engineer with deployable cover, and the Teutonic Knight BS attack -3 with missile launcher. Then I have a Harris with 2 Teutonic Knights, one with the NCO Spitfire and the Specialist Operative with submachine gun Panzerfaust, and they are joined by Mendoza, the fire team option. Rounding out with a Knight of the Holy Sepulchre NCO and a Raven Eye, and in Group 2 just a Peacemaker mine layer Oxbot again, the Fugazi, and a Mulebot. So for this list I played it as well for an area of interest mission, and that was the one where I was not successful and I could not move anywhere, and a lot of bad deployment mistakes were on my half. But I'll keep the core as is. I've just swapped out the Crozier for the Blackfriar with +1 Thunderbolt and Albedo, because while the Crozier HMG is good, it doesn't apply any negative mod to my opponent's multispectral visor troopers, and he had a lot of those that also had MEM3. So I think the Blackfriar is a better option with the MSV2, because not only can it deal with my opponent's Mimetism troopers, because they also had a lot of MSV troopers, namely MSV1 and one trooper with MSV2, it can apply -6 mod, so it gives me more favourable outcomes. And I really want to make the missile launcher Teutonic Knight work, and I found that using the Curator with a deployable cover would just boost his survivability. So because the Teutonic Knight already has limited cover, meaning the opponent does not apply a -3 mod to their ballistic attack, the rules for deployable cover state the same thing. You can gain +6 armor, but you lose the vision mod. And because the Teutonic Knight already loses the vision mod, what I'm really doing is boosting his armor stat in the save. So it goes from armor 3, which is his natural attribute, including +6 for armor. So that makes it armor 9 for a save, which makes him quite durable. So looking at the math, 6 + 3 is 9. Let's say +5 for a HMG is 9, 10, 14. So 14 or less for an armor save is pretty good stats. And the whole point of the missile launcher is just to take out those heavy targets and do as much damage as I can in ARO, because it will gain a +1 special die due to the level 3 core. And you know, if the odds are not that great, then I can also dodge. So it's just how to waste orders but also do a lot of attack. And the BS attack -3 is useful because it applies a -3 mod to my opponent for any face-to-face roll. The Harris is just the team that is meant to push forward in the assault for area of interest to try and fight over the special zone or even the midfield, the antenna. And Mendoza, with continuous damage for all his attacks, is just a really impressive trooper when it works well. Obviously you have to, you know, he's not bulletproof, but he's a heavy infantry version of Wolfgang, but with everything continuous. And continuous damage grenades is actually really useful too, doing spec fire. Knight of the Holy Sepulchre is there to take out any heavy infantry or light tags, just with the AP heavy machine gun. And both the Teutonic Knight, Spitfire, and the Knight of the Holy Sepulchre have NCO, so those 2 lieutenant orders can be split either side. So while this is only a 13 regular order list, the 2 lieutenant orders can actually make it a 15 order list. Raven Eye for good defensive control. You know, the Cyber Mine helps stun and prevent opponents from coming down and puts heavy infantry in Mobilized B, or you know, tags and remotes. And the Emerald is just a very good template EM weapon. Peacemaker for the midfield control, and the 2 Fagazia Mulebots just to add those extra orders, and that's about it. So need a few more games with this and a few more opponents to play against, just to round out what do I need. I'm thinking I might need a hacker in there of some description, so we'll see how that goes. Maybe I'll rearrange the core to include a Order Sergeant hacker, or maybe remove the Knight of the Holy Sepulchre and double down on maybe a Knight duo with a hacker. So we'll see how that goes. This is the end of the video. Any updates to the mission lineup I will provide a post on my channel, and hopefully we can achieve 20 players for the event, or at least up to 20 players. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you there.